Firstly, assume everyone hates your idea. Silence might be golden, but it will kill your projects.
Welcome to Machine Shop Tech Talk. We're going to talk about fear, and the first thing you're going to tell me is, I'm not scared. That's okay. Stay with me. We're going to talk about things to spot if you are actually resistant to change, because most people out there don't realize they're even resistant to change, and in the world of manufacturing is constantly changing. So stick with us. I'm here today with my buddy Mike, and we're going to dig into it. Welcome, Mike.
Thank you very much. Great to be here, and looking forward to talking about fear.
Well, and change, right? Because I know you and I have talked a lot about this, is the people out there, they want to constantly advance, but then when you talk to them, you start to realize right away there's a lot of commonalities between the people out there. So I want to dig into that really quick for the people watching. Can you give us like that 30-second summary? Who is Mike?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I'm a man that enjoys manufacturing, loves talking about it, and has had a huge amount of background in it. I always start with a little story of that I have manufacturing in the blood. That mainly comes from the fact that when I was working at my dad's factory, I was grinding metal, and I just got a tattoo, and the metal managed to make its way up my t-shirt and into the wound, which means that I quite literally have manufacturing in the blood. But yeah, anything to do with manufacturing, I love talking about, seeing, and yeah, I talk about data a lot and the changes within manufacturing that, as you say, we see all the time.
Yeah, and data is becoming more important as we go. For anyone watching, if you're not connected with Mike, go get connected, because he's got really great insights when it comes to data, when it comes to change management. It's why I've invited him here to be with us. So I'd never heard that story about the tattoo, though. That's crazy. I mean, I just got it in the eyes. I'm forever banned from MRIs, is what I was told from a doctor, because I was one of the cool kids that didn't always wear my eye protection. Wear your eye protection out there. So we're talking change, we're talking data, we're talking fear. So what are some of the common signs you've seen in people? You start talking about something different than what they're doing right now. What's some of the things that you start to see in people?
Well, I mean, from a fear perspective, it's just an instant rejection of an idea, no matter what. It could be a great idea, it could make their life so much better, but it's an unwillingness to consider the idea. Where that fear comes from is multiple different areas. As we've talked about before, it's not always the person that you would expect to be resistant and be fearful of that change. Often it's the person that's currently really enjoying the way that things are doing right now, or the way that things are going right now. They're not the technological Luddite, as some people think. It's more the people that are further ahead that you're kind of changing their baby. You're changing their comfort zone. And that's where a lot of it comes from what I see.
Yeah, and I think that's a good point to bring up there. It's sometimes that, like another word, like that rock star, that superstar inside the company. But the thing about that superstar, that rock star, is they're the one choosing the course, and they're the ones plotting it out. And the fear of change isn't just about that it could get worse, because obviously that's there. Nobody likes to fail. Nobody likes to look bad to their bosses. That's a reality. But it's also the fact that whether it's worse or it's better, it's going to be different after, whether you change a data policy or you change cutting tools or a new machine tool control, whatever the change is, it's now going to be different. And it's our needs or wants as humans to be able to navigate whatever there, because again, we don't like to fail. We don't like to look bad. And even if it's new and it's better and it's awesome, there's still a chance you're going to fail, because it's different than what you're used to navigating, that default that you've come into every day.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that for me, one of the biggest challenges with any project, any new initiative, it is that fear, but that fear is often misunderstood. That fear isn't just because I don't like change. It's what that change represents, and it's how is it going to affect me personally? Because it's very easy for us to get wrapped up in the benefits of the change for the business and how much it's going to improve people's lives. But a lot of it is about that risk factor. It's, am I going to look stupid? Am I going to look good? But what's the likelihood, or what's the chances that I could end up looking bad? And that's where the fear comes from. For the most part, I see it's, oh, I could end up looking bad. Or I've already done something similar to this, hasn't gone that well. Do I want to highlight I could have done something better by now trying to do a new project in that area? Or do I want to hide it and just move on to the next thing and focus on that?
Yeah, that's such a good point. And it's something that, you know, I've caught myself in, right? Like, we're talking about this. Neither of us are sitting here saying that we are perfect. We are human beings as well. We're not robots that you just flip a switch and it automatically goes. It's well, look, and I've run into this more so with customers when it came to cutting tools. And different things, is I was sitting there with a programmer, and this is a few years ago when I was still working at a distributor. And I was like, okay, well, look, you know, here's this new drill, because they were drilling a lot of aluminum and it was only aluminum. So we could go specialty. They'd been using a general drill. And the programmer looked at me and he's like, that's great, Arthur. He's like, is this new? And I'm like, oh no, it's been out like 5 years. He's like, I can't do that. I was like, well, what do you mean? He's like, I only set this up 3 years ago. So if I put in a better drill now, the thing is they're going to come down on me and they're going to tell me I didn't do a good job setting up the line in the first place. Yep. So it's not just fear for it is fear, but it's fear of repercussions from management or ownership that will penalize you when you find a better way. And it sounds ridiculous for you and I, and probably for some of the people out there, but that is a reality. And like, check your own interactions with your reports, right? Have you ever penalized them because they thought of a better way? You're going to want to say no, but give it a look, because that is such a barrier. And I've seen it follow people between companies. So even when they go to a new company that is totally on board for the change and the continuous improvement, and they don't care and they don't weaponize that against their employees. The employees have already experienced that at another company, and at this company it hasn't been made clear, like, look, like, we don't care, we will never hold it against you. There's just an opportunity there on the leadership side to really speak to, hey, look, there will never make you feel bad because you thought of a better way. And I don't think we speak to that enough on the leadership side.
And I think that's probably one of the core things that, when I've talked about change management, it is that exact point, which is, are you creating the environment for people to bring ideas to you? Because even if you don't like the idea, or you think, actually, no, that's bad, or, oh, why haven't we done that before? You need to be creating that environment for them to be able to bring those ideas to you, because otherwise they're going to hide them. I'd much rather be able to get the ideas and realize, okay, we could have been making these savings, but every single time you get an idea, there needs to be a line drawn in the sand. It's, yeah, okay, we could have done that. Okay, somebody could have done a better job, but it doesn't matter. I think there's an adage that says the best time to start was 20 years ago. The next best time is now. So it's making sure that you don't make somebody hide it for another year, another 2 years, before that good idea comes through, because someone's finally either moved on or no longer feels that it's an issue. It's just getting that view.
Yeah, or you hire someone that's not scared or hasn't developed that fear of the leadership yet, and they're willing to stick their neck out and actually like stay the course and be like, no, we need to do this, and they get super, super stubborn, kind of annoying sometimes when they're your direct report, but in a good way, right? But that I think is a good transition. You know, we've talked about fear, but change management, it sounds like this one, most people think it sounds kind of boring. I find it really exciting. That's why we originally started talking, because I get so excited about change management, because it's about creating that environment, like you've already been talking about, that there is trust. You're demonstrating trust in your direct reports, you're demonstrating trust in the leadership, and you're demonstrating trust in the fact that everybody's moving towards that end goal as a company. So when we're looking at change management, what are some of the things that you find important to have in place? I know we've already talked about a little bit of it, but what's important for a good change management system?
I mean, that's the question for sure. It's what's good for change management. I think the number one thing is to forget everything you know about management in other areas of the business.
Yeah.
Because you're not managing KPIs. Yes, there's KPIs that will come out the back of change management. You're trying to achieve success in your project, and that's project-based change management. But
Yeah.
if you are really looking to embed change management principles into the business, you need to be looking at it as people management, not, oh, I'm managing a process or I'm changing something and it's just going to be X, Y, and Z, and there's going to be no variable factors into it. It's simple. Somebody will listen to the change that I'm telling them and will go with it. It never happens. So the number one thing is just remember that you're dealing with people in what is quite an emotional state. Change is always one of the more emotional phases we find ourselves in. That's why some of the most stressful times in our lives are big changes, changing house, getting married. It's big changes that are coming. So it's remember that it's an emotional phase that people are going for and get them involved early. A lot of people, from what I can see, they will, whether it's a solution to do with software or it's anything, whatever it is, they decide the requirements based on a top-down view. They go, this is what we want to achieve. And then they start building out this solution for whatever problem it is without involving the people that it affects. They go, this is how it should be. This is what the vendor's telling us. This is what the consultant's telling us. And they don't involve the users. And then they implement it. It goes live. And then suddenly the users absolutely hate it. And they go, well, why did you do this? Because that has no bearing on how we would do things on an operational level. It's that true get people involved early so they take ownership of that project, of that change, and they feel like they've been involved so they can then be your change champion and drive it as well.
That's such an important thing. I was at a keynote speaking engagement. It was earlier this year in a town over here called Langley. It's in BC, Canada. And they had people from C-SPAN, which is a large shipbuilder over here on the West Coast. And they were speaking to the adoption of automation. And what the speaker brought up, I can't remember his name. It was a brilliant keynote. I really loved it because the way he looked at this, and it touches on all those points, is they had tried automation, and the first time they put in automation, the union came in and they're like, no. And then so they changed the leadership around to the gentleman that was now delivering the keynote, and he came in and he's like, look, guys, he's like, we need to, if we want to keep making these contracts here in Canada, we need to adopt automation. He's like, but, and this is what I really loved, because he started speaking to their fears and he got everyone involved at the beginning, like you're saying. He started speaking to the fears. Look, the first thing when we talk automation, you guys are worried you're going to lose hours. We're going to employ less people. He's like, just as an FYI, if we get this right, we're going to employ like 300, 400 more people. Okay. Just as an end goal, we're going to actually bring more people in. And he's like, secondly, he's like, we want to start with a single project, and the project that we're starting on, it was all these line welds that were like 2 inches off the ground. Mm-hmm. He's like, look, nobody wants to do this job. Everybody complains when we put them on welding. There was these big long seam welds, like ridiculously like laborious, dirty job. Nobody wanted to do it. You had to crawl on the freaking ground on your back with a torch. He's like, we're going to start with this one. And then we're going to show you that we're going to hire more people and we're going to move from there. And I love that because it speaks to the fear. It brought everyone in from the very beginning. And after that, for the record, the union rubber stamped it. They've hired hundreds and hundreds more. I think they still need like thousands of people for these projects. It's ridiculous. But because they brought that team in the beginning and they spoke to the fear, which I think that's so important as a leader, you need to recognize, even if, like you said, you know, you've got this great idea, you're focusing on the end goal, we need to adopt this software, this tool, whatever the change is that as a leader, even if you're not scared of it, let's say you're a champion and you're loving it, you got to understand that the people on your team are going to have fear come up for them. Yep. And you've got to speak to that. say, hey, I'm thinking about this too. Yes, I know. Maybe they are, maybe they aren't. But if you don't speak to it, it could go sideways. And
Yeah,
yeah,
I think two things you've touched on there that I know for a fact are just some of the most important parts to do with it. It's firstly, assume everyone hates your idea. Like, assume everyone hates it. It's if you assume people love it, you won't think about why they wouldn't. But yeah,
yeah,
assume that everyone hates the idea, and then also the
yeah.
communication piece, which is silence might be golden, but it will kill your projects.
Oh, 100%.
If people are quiet, that doesn't mean that they're happy. It means that they're just not saying it to you. It's
Yeah,
make sure about feedback loops. Make sure that you've got people involved. But yeah, assume
yeah.
that they hate the project.
And I love that. And I'm laughing away over here because that was one of my biggest obstacles when I first started, because I've always had the ability to see ways to tweak things. I don't know why. I don't know what the hell happened in my childhood. Something happened where I keep seeing ways to tweak things and improve them. Okay. But I would always start in the beginning like, oh my God, this is genius. Everyone's going to love it. And I would run in bullheaded, like everyone's going to love my idea. Spoiler alert. I ended up doing like 5 years of like leadership training and development, and well, more than that now, but in the beginning, and they helped me realize what you're saying is everyone's going to hate it. You've got to show them why it's a good idea, but you also can't make them feel like an idiot, because if you make them feel like an idiot, it doesn't matter how brilliant your idea is, they're automatically going to kill it any way they possibly can. And they'll just sit there like, and in their head, they're plotting, okay, this is how I'm going to do this. And fuck that guy. Oh, I'm going to start calling in sick. Whatever. They're going to find a way to sabotage it.
Yeah. They will find a way to just make it not happen, or make it as difficult as possible, or unsuccessful as possible.
Yeah.
I mean, I've made the mistake so many times, exactly as you have. And I think it's easy to sit here and say, while looking down at projects and in with hindsight as 2020, but we've all done it where you get excited about something. I get excited about things all the time with that. Oh my God, this is amazing. Why haven't we done it sooner? Why is no one doing this? And then you run at it and you realise, oh, hang on, they don't like it because of X, Y, and Z, or, oh, hang on, I didn't consider this because I was so happy in my giddy little schoolgirl environment of, you get so far ahead of yourself, which is why it's difficult in the moment to sit and say, hang on, why will people hate this? But because you almost feel like you're trying to undercut your own project, or you're trying to undercut some form of change, and it's not that. It's understanding why other people will have an issue with it and trying to address those reasons. Because if you can't address those reasons, it will fail.
That's something I have struggled with over the years. I'm an eternal optimist, right? Like, I've warned friends. I was like, look, I'm the silver lining guy. It doesn't matter how hard the thing you're going through right now. Look, by default, I'm going to try to talk about a win, okay? I love to focus on that, but it can also invalidate the experience of others. And that's not a great way to make a difference. It's also important to understand, like you said, you're not trying to kill your idea. You're just trying to see what areas you need to speak to when you're delivering, whether it's a project plan or you're trying to get, manager buy-in or ownership buy-in or employee buy-in. If you speak to the things you think they're thinking, whether they are or they aren't, they're automatically going to perceive you as someone that cares more, because you do, because you're actually putting that time in to care about what they might be going through.
That's exactly it. It's if you can go to those people and say, I've thought about this, I've thought about how it's going to affect you, not how it's going to affect me, because often the person making the change decision is not the person it affects. It's the person it benefits most. But the person it affects most, it may benefit them, but at first they are sitting there going, well, hang on a second, this is going to cause me more admin work. This is going to mean that I have to do an extra step. So it's about really sitting down and going through that and figuring out, is this the right way to communicate it? Is this the right way to improve it? Is there another way? What steps in here can we do that's going to alleviate some of that admin work for somebody. It's you've spent the time to think about how it affects them, not just yourself.
That's, I think, the underlying message through all of this, right? Like the reality is we're all humans that experience fear. And so learning ways to work together, we focused a lot on the leadership side, on how to speak to it, but also to, you know, if it's a leader that you're trying to follow and they suggest something to you and you have a concern over something that they haven't thought about, assume the best in that leader. Be like, oh, hey, you might have overlooked this, or however, that may not be the best way to say it. But it's like, hey, have you thought about this? Yeah. Then they might say yes or no, and then you can start that conversation, because it's about coming together, working in partnership, and being open and understanding. Yeah, just everybody's got fear. Like, we got to work together, and some of us are going to have better communication skills.
That's also a huge challenge. Like a huge challenge. Yeah. It's somebody may wish to communicate with you, but they don't know how, or they struggle with doing things in a public forum. So when you go and say to an entire team, let's have a discussion about this, your biggest advocate or your biggest detractor might sit there quietly and not know how to communicate their admiration or their absolute hatred of what you're talking about. But it will come out in one-to-ones when you've released the project. Figuring out how to get that out before that point is, it's key.
100%. And I think that's a good place to kind of wrap up the episode, Mike, is be in communication. Assume that maybe other people can't communicate as well as you. If you're someone watching this and you're like, oh man, you know, I'm always the one. Well, it's probably because you're the one willing, right? You're the willing one that either has the training, the development, the experience, and possibly the other people in the team don't have that advantage of that training. So being willing to step up to lead in a discussion, even if you're not the leader, but if to lead in a discussion to help everything work together. I love it because it just makes work a lot more fun. And I'm a big advocate that you should love what you do. Is there anything you would like to either make a request to the people watching? I mean, if they made it this far, dude, they're in it.
They made it this far, they are loving it.
Exactly. Is there any requests or any final things you would like to say to the people out there watching?
Thank you for watching, and continue to watch Arthur, because the guy brings so much to manufacturing. That's probably the main thing I'd say. But a final thought from me would just be almost what we started with, which is remember that this is an emotional or a fear for people. It's remember that you're dealing with people, and at their essence, they're unpredictable. So really try and address that.
Thank you so much for being here, Mike. And to all my machine shop friends out there watching along, keep your spindles turning and earning.